Welcome back to the studio. Wait a second, let me do that again. Welcome back to the wacky world of the 2006 Stanley Cup playoffs.
What a period that was. 1-0 going in, 8 goals scored in the period. Give Anaheim a lot of credit for fighting back down. 4-0 after a couple of huge goals by Edmonton at home. You think this game is over, and all of a sudden the Anaheim Mighty Ducks are right back in the thick of it. And Rolson's making saves at the end of the game again. A one-goal hockey was nuts.
Jonesy, I said to you before the game that if Anaheim scores 3 or 4 goals tonight, it could change the entire series around. But I never anticipated them scoring 4 goals and still losing the game. So I'm not quite sure where all this goes. I don't know if this is good for them. It's obviously bad they're down 3-0. That's the obvious part. But I don't know if they get enough momentum from this just scoring some goals on Rolison finally.
Well, even if they have momentum, they have to play one more game at Rexall Place, and that'll be Game 4. And we're just going to come back and start our post-game coverage, so stick with us. Highlights, interviews, post-game press conference, and we'll hear from Michael Peca. Boy, you talk about being on a roll. And welcome to our post-game report. Bill Clement with Keith Jones and Brian Engblom. A wild third period at Rexall Place in Edmonton. It was 1-0 Edmonton going into the third. We don't have all night, so we better get to the highlights.
Dwayne Rolison was under siege all night. Niedermeyer coming in. Getzlaf with a chance. No, Rolison blocking that too.
Then Michael Peca blocks it with a skate off Ruslan Saleh. Goes in alone on the breakaway. Puts it upstairs past Brizgalov. A 2-0 Edmonton Oilers lead.
Watch this move by Sergei Samsonov. Little misdirection going east-west, drops it to Steve Staios. The defensive defenseman jumps up, scores a beautiful goal. 3-0 Edmonton.
The Oilers keep it going on the power play. Chris Pronger again, the head up, the big slap shot. His 4th goal of the playoffs and a 4-0 Oiler lead.
Looked like the game was over.
Yeah, things start to change. Sean O'Donnell, a shot from the point, finds its way in. Then Teemu Selanne grabs it, fakes, goes wide. Beautiful goal by Selanne. Now it's 4-2.
And the Ducks weren't done yet. They just kept pushing forward, throwing pucks at the net and getting some bounces for the first time in this series. Chris Kunitz picks it up here, puts it past Rolison for Kunitz's 3rd of the playoffs and a 4-3 score. But Fernando Pisani, the eventual game-winning goal here, is 9th of the playoffs off the face-off. 5-3 Edmonton.
This one was disputed. A shot from the point. Teemu Selanne, it goes off his foot. It definitely goes in the net, and it definitely counts, so that made it 5-4.
Then the Ducks get their play drawn up on the board, and they come out and execute, get some bounces in front here. Dwayne Rolson stops them, and Jason Smith makes a great defensive effort to keep the puck away from Rolson, and a 5-4 Edmonton Oilers victory.
No shortage of heroes for the Edmonton Oilers, including Mike Peca. A 4-game goal-scoring streak for him now, and he's with Bob Harwood.
All right, Bill, thank you. Usually a Mike Peca second or at least a 2-0 goal in a third period means the Oilers tend to shut things down a little bit. You opened the floodgates with that one.
I think that was the problem. You know, it seemed to come pretty easy there for a little stretch, and we seemed to back off. And it's not that they really mounted an attack right away. They got the one that gave them a little confidence. You get the second one, then all of a sudden they start believing a little bit. And we just sat back and didn't really initiate. So that 5th goal by Fernando was really big.
What you did early with the lead and building the lead is initiate. Yourself with that breakup play, I guess, and a goal. Jaro Spacek draws a penalty by a rush in the offensive zone. Will you learn from the lesson of them pushing back tonight, Mike? Is that valuable at all?
Well, certainly. I think, you know, we're not going to make excuses for the way we feel health-wise, but, you know, they just had much more jump for 60 minutes than we did. We had the spurts that fortunately got us enough goals to win the hockey game, but you know, it's not going to get any easier on Thursday. I think they know their backs are against the wall for sure now, and I think they found what works for them. So we've got to come out and have a great game.
Mike, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill.
Bob, thanks very much. Only the 2nd game in NHL Stanley Cup playoff history where both teams score 4 goals in the third period. That's how wild it was. For the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, they can take some positives away, but the great negative is being down 3 games to none.
And that's right. And they're going to have to obviously just clear the mental screen in order to get anything accomplished in that 4th game. But the good news for them is that Teemu Selanne ended up with a couple of goals. He had some other scoring chances. Chris Kunitz, the winger on that first line, who had some scoring chances in previous games and couldn't come through, he also scored. So they get 3 goals from that top line. When your top line starts to produce, it always energizes the rest of the team. So there was some positive from Anaheim, the way they played. Again, going back to the start of the game, rather, the way they started off, shooting pucks and fights and everything else. Some positives to come out of this.
But I guess the thing to ponder is, just because there are some positives for the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, does it necessarily follow that there are negatives coming out of this game from Edmonton's standpoint?
I don't think there's any negatives. The fact that Michael Peca just said there's a lot of guys still fighting the flu. They came out and played with a lot of energy through the first 2 periods. They got the lead 4-0. They did sit back a little bit, so you can see that there's some guys that have some empty tanks on that Edmonton Oilers team. Anaheim had their opportunities, and Edmonton was sitting back and trying to hold on to that lead. They didn't play the ideal third period when you're up 4-0, but they've had such success from so many different areas on their team that they've been able to win it.
They keep finding a way to win.
And tomorrow they will find a way to rest because it's an off day in the Western Conference Final. Hometown boy Fernando Pisani, oh yeah, he made it count when it really was necessary. We'll be back after this. And welcome back. The Edmonton Oilers have defeated the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim in Game 3 of the Western Conference Final tonight. A wild third period. Chris Pronger, so huge. He's been at his best this year in the playoff run. Career best, 4th goal of these playoffs. He leads all D-men with 15 points.
He's made so few mistakes in the entire playoffs. He hasn't had a minus game since the first game against Detroit in the first series. But Pronger has scored some goals, and we're going to show you a goal that he scored in this game tonight that really is what all defensemen in the playoffs should be looking at. We've been talking so much about shot blocking. Look at 44 on the blue line. I want you to see his head up. You see the shot blockers in front of him there? Watch the shot blockers line up. Well, Pronger has time and room because it's a power play, but look at his head. His head is up the entire way. It's like a fighter pilot who gets tone and just zeroes in on exactly where the net is, where the shot blockers are. He saw exactly the avenue that he needed to shoot at to get it all the way to the net. In today's NHL, the way everybody is lining up and blocking shots, you have to play with your head up and you have to take the time to shoot like that if you're going to have any success.
And you know, when you think about Chris Pronger, you think of how well he plays defensively. He's been on for 75% of the Edmonton Oilers goals. 75% of the goals he's on the ice for, and on so many of those he's either scored them or he's had a big assist on. So he is an extremely, extremely important player for the Edmonton Oilers. He's used properly. He saves his energy. He plays a ton of minutes, checks the opposition's top players, and has the production offensively for the Edmonton Oilers. He absolutely does it all.
And that's the thing. He and Jason Smith certainly deserves a lot of credit there because they're shutting down the top lines almost every night. Now, I said a few minutes ago that the top line did get some goals tonight for Anaheim. But overall, I mean, those guys are going to score from time to time. Pronger's ability with the stick. He has the best stick in the league because he just seems to have radar. Against Joe Thornton in the last series, Thornton is the best disguiser of a pass I think that there is in the game right now. He'll hold on and look over here to be passing this way. Well, Pronger would have it figured out and he'd have his stick in the alleyway a lot. So he's doing so many things at both ends of the ice. Pronger's just been brilliant.
What really impressed me about the Edmonton Oilers was it looked like they were going into a defensive shell, but when Anaheim got close, pedal to the metal again, and they ultimately pulled away. We're waiting for people to show up at the press conference. We're going to bring that to you when we come back. In the meantime, the Edmonton Oilers are feeling it on 3-0 over the Mighty Ducks.
At no point was I...
Edmonton Oilers head coach Craig McTavish is at the microphone.
The energy level of our team. And then they get the first one, and the momentum shifts completely. And then it was we were struggling to stay into it, and when you spend that much time in your own zone, bad things are going to happen, and they did. The one off Todd's foot and in the top of the net, but that's what happens when you're a tired group, and you're even I guess it was the third goal came around the boards, and Gator was exhausted. And Fernando could have got to the puck, but he thought Jason was going to get to it, and then they grab it, and it ends up in the back of our net at that point. So it was a wild game, but you know, we feel fortunate to have won the game, obviously. And I've been in those situations before where I haven't won. And at the end of the day, it's a win. We need some rest. And we got to come in here Thursday with some fresher legs.
I just wanted to ask you about that with the next game Thursday, Mac T. The condition physically of your club and the fact that the flu bug is there. What do we expect for Thursday? Can you get over this?
Well, we'll address it with personnel, but we won't have near the amount of players playing tonight that aren't 100%. And we've got lots of bodies, lots of fresh bodies, and it's quite clearly we survived Game 2 in Anaheim, and you know, we barely survived tonight, but we don't want to go in to Game 4 with anything but a bunch of fresh legs.
Go ahead.
Craig, were you surprised by the level of the Ducks' physicality early in the game, how physical they were? And did that physicality with Wisniewski, did that cost them the lead, a lead that's been very important throughout the course of this series?
Well, that happens when, you think it's and one of the things of playoff hockey is that you never want to play yourself out of a game, regardless what the score is. We saw it last night in Carolina when Carolina gets the 4th goal, and then sure enough Buffalo comes back with 2, and when we got the 4th goal, you never want to put yourself in that situation. You never know what's going to happen in NHL playoff hockey, so you never want to give that next goal, because you know sure enough you're going to end up coming back and lose by 1. I was surprised with the way they wanted to play early on in the hockey game. That surprised me to a certain degree, but I felt like they were going to take penalties early, and with the way that I thought the game was going to go, I thought that could be real beneficial to us. They played physical and played pretty disciplined. Took the first penalty early, but they're a team that has a lot of pride, obviously, and they came out and they weren't going to back down, and they weren't going to fold their tent, and you have to give them credit for the way they came out at the start of the game, and credit to their coaching staff.
Back here to the left, Coach.
Given the energy level of your team right now, Craig, how important is it to wrap it up on Thursday?
Well, right now I'm just real happy that we got the game tonight, and I'm better informed as to what we need to do going into our best players were early. Our forwards were Rem Murray and Toby Peterson were skating, and you get into a dilemma as a coach where you know that those guys are fresh and they're skating and they're performing at a high level, but you're also thinking that, hey, I gotta go with what I've gone with before and the reliability, and it was a little bit of a catch-22. In hindsight, I should have cut some of our other guys back that weren't feeling well and gone with Rem more and Toby, and even George played very well, I thought. But it's going to be a tough task on Thursday again, but it'd be very important for us to get that game and then get some rest, because we got to regroup a little bit physically now.
Next question. Anything further? Oh, over here, Coach.
What did you think of George giving the thumbs up on the jumbo?
I'm never a big advocate of that, and that stuff always comes back to haunt you, and George has never, he did that in the Simon fight against Calgary, which seemed like a more appropriate time, but you really, I've been around long enough that you know that you can look awful foolish, and why give them the opportunity. So I don't foresee him doing that again.
Right here
in the bench.
Craig, can you just talk about what you're seeing out of Mike Peca and him stepping his game up at just the right time?
Yeah, it looked like another, huge goal, great goal, breakaway goal, blocked the shot, terrific shot himself in the top corner, and it looked like it was going to be the insurance goal, and should have been given the circumstances of the game. But he's played exceptionally well, and he's played lots of hockey. Our team has played lots of hockey. We played 10 games in an every other day stretch, and it's taking its toll on us right now. And we got to win the game Thursday and get the horses to the barn and get a little rest.
Other question, to the right.
Greg, did you watch the tapes of the Colorado series against Anaheim, and did you pick up things about Anaheim that helped you in this series? I cover a team that got swept by Anaheim, so you're about to sweep them.
Well, they've been 3 close games, and the Anaheim-Colorado series wasn't as close as what this series has been. to this point. They played very similarly to the way they played tonight, where they were a dominant team down low. They cycled the puck. They took the puck to the net and had lots of success against Colorado in that series. Now, and we saw them play obviously against Calgary too, and they had similar success in those areas.
Anything further? Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Scheduled up next, Fernando Pisani, Chris Pronger, and Michael.
Craig McTavish, the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, who go up 3 games to none against the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. It was a wacky third period. The game was pretty well in control. Edmonton had it in control. Then all heck broke loose in the third period. What would you guys say was the key component to Edmonton's victory, or can you find one?
I absolutely can find one. Dwayne Rolson was so good early on, and Edmonton got the lead. If you have guys with the flu and you're sick and you're not feeling well, you got some guys that are tired, the worst thing that can happen to you is you play from behind and have to chase the game. Edmonton got the lead. They kept the lead. They never once lost the lead. As much as Anaheim started to get things going, they had the lead, and Anaheim had to come to them. Edmonton was able to sit back and ultimately win the hockey game.
Well, I think there were some mistakes certainly made by Anaheim. You know, they're fresher physically after winning the other series so quickly, but they're still making some critical mistakes like they did in the first couple of games, and that's come back to haunt them again. 3 of the goals they allowed tonight were mistakes.
All right, the Western Conference now goes to at least a Game 4, but we can't promise anything past that. And Game 4 will be Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back to our studio after this. Edmonton Oilers' Chris Pronger and Fernando Pisani have joined the press conference.
I mean, those were the types of goals that they were getting. It wasn't like they were getting tic-tac-toe goals, but those are the ones you're going to get, especially in a comeback like they had.
Next question to the right here, guys.
Fernando, when your team's on the ropes, it's 4-3. You score a goal where maybe you got a couple lucky bounces just on the goal. Do you start to believe, I know you believe in the team, but do you start to believe maybe it's destiny?
Well, I think you got to work for every opportunity that you get, and I think we did a good job of, in the first 2 periods of just getting the puck in deep, and then in the third we sat back, and I think it's a matter of being in the right position too at the right time, and sometimes the bounces do go your way.
Next question again to the right, guys.
Chris, your second Western Finals, but now you're 1 step away from your first Cup Finals. What's it going to be like for you the next couple of days, realizing you're so close?
Well, that's just it. We're close. We're not there, and we can't get ahead of ourselves. You look at the amount of guys that played through a lot of adversity tonight, and in Game 2 as well. And pretty proud of the way we not only stood up for ourselves, but battled through a lot of different stuff through the course of the game today. And it just shows the character in the locker room, and each guy's playing for one another in there, and guys are doing whatever it takes, and playing hurt, sick, whatever the case may be, and we've got a chance to close them out on Thursday, but I'm sure they're going to have a lot to say about it, especially with the way they finished the game here.
I'd like to get both of your opinions, if I could, on exactly what you talked about, Chris. Mac T's indicated that he's got to have some fresh legs for the game Thursday, and he's got some people around. He indicated that you're perhaps more tired than it might even appear on the ice.
Well, I think when you're battling out there, you got to find a way to win those battles. And if you're sick or hurt or whatever, it doesn't matter. Once you get on the ice, you have to find a way to get the puck out or get the puck in, or win the one-on-one battles.
I think at the end of the day, you look at the score, it's 5-4 with minute 15 to go. They call it timeout. It's cut check time for us, and making sure we're leaving it all on the ice and not having to go back into the locker room and come back out again. To have a 4-0 lead and have it squandered and then get back up 5-3, that would have been pretty disheartening for us to have to come back out and play overtime. And Rolly played unbelievable in the first 2 periods, and in the third period made some great saves to keep the score the way it was.
Another one here, guys.
Chris, were you a little surprised how physical Anaheim was, and how frustrating is it being a bigger man, having guys that during the course of the regular season don't play an overly physical game, taking runs at you and taking runs at your goaltender?
Well, you know what, I think in watching the other two series, they weren't as physical in the first two games. And obviously coming in here for Game 3, they wanted to play a more physical style of game. And, you know, I think they were trying to intimidate us, there's no question, in that first period. And, you know, it wasn't working. And, you know, they wanted to try to get to Rolly, I'm sure, and try to bump him and hit him and do all the things that teams do when they're down. And, you know, that's up to the referees to call that stuff. And we can't get caught up in that too much. We did a little bit early in the first, and you know, I think after that we kind of settled down and tried to leave that in the referee's hands, and they made a few calls on it.
Last question right here.
Fernando, talk to me about the chemistry on your line with Mike Peca. It sure seems like, well, it goes without saying, you're playing pretty well as a unit.
Well, Mike's such a smart player, and he's always in the right position at the right time, that we kind of feed off each other, you know, either if it's in our end or down low in the other end, and he tries to, you know, find me in the slot in the soft areas, and I just try to get open, and, you know, we've been fortunate. It's been working for us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Well, there's a good chance that casual fans across the continent hadn't heard of Fernando Pisani before this playoff year began, but they sure know who he is now, and he is clutch.
Yeah, one of the reporters asked a question, was there some lucky bounces on your goal? There was no lucky bounces. This guy has 9 goals in the playoffs because he earns them. It's a face-off in the offensive zone. He jumps through. It's actually a lost face-off by Michael Peca, but he has enough presence to go after the puck. He jumps on the puck, grabs it, and makes a nice deke to score a big goal. He's scored huge goals throughout the playoffs. He had a great regular season as well, but you find out what a player's made of come playoff time, and Fernando Pisani has been that guy.
That's right, because when you look at any team, when you prepare for a team in any playoff series, you look at the top lines and you figure out who you're going to square up against. But when a third-line guy, which is essentially what Pisani is, comes through and scores 9 goals, it's the leading goal scorer in the playoffs for Edmonton. How do you account for that? Well, they're going to have to start accounting for it.
Randy Carlyle is the head coach of the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. We join him in the press conference.
Just yell.
Good news, bad news ending to that game tonight?
You know, this game was one that was competed at the highest level of any of the previous games, and there was a lot of hard work put in by both teams, and from our perspective, the game changed on the call on Selanne, the holding call down in the offensive zone. It's kind of baffling from our perspective on that call. And then the third goal, Pisani had both feet planted in the crease. Our goaltender couldn't come across. Those are things that come back to haunt us. We made some mistakes tonight that did cost us the turnover and along the wall for Peca's goal, and then the one turnover for their 5th goal in front of our net. But other than that, I thought we played a pretty competitive hockey game, and we had lots of opportunities, but we didn't get it done.
We're here, the right coach.
Speaking of calls, I saw a couple your coaches thinking they had a couple dives, especially on a call there. Anything about your team, though, that you're upset with, and that little flurry of penalties that get them up?
Well, what happened is that it seemed like that was the turning point for the things that went against us, and we have to obviously be more disciplined when that tide turns, that we continually went to the penalty box. The one retaliation penalty by Wisniewski was a bad penalty. You cannot do that. That's, no matter how hard the swing or the roughing infraction, you just don't do that, because you saw we were a benefit of Todd Harvey taking a retaliatory penalty, so you know that was the standard, and we didn't react very well in that situation.
Next question. No further questions? Thank you, Coach.
All right, very short comments by Randy Carlyle, the losing coach in this game. We'll turn our attention now to the Eastern Conference. We've got Game 3 for you tomorrow night. The Carolina Hurricanes came back and won Game 2. Now the series shifts from Raleigh to Buffalo. What do we expect?
Well, again, Carolina, I thought, really took advantage of some of the opportunities down low in the Buffalo Sabres end. Without Teppo Newman in that lineup, some guys for the Buffalo Sabres on their blue line are really going to have to step up. They had some more minutes, some added minutes. I know that Lindy Ruff wasn't that happy with some of those players, but look for those Carolina forwards to really try to take advantage in the Buffalo zone.
It's a real key. If Teppo Newman can't play, it changes things, and I think we've already seen that. The quality of play that he has back there, his controlling influence back on the blue line, was really sorely missed by Buffalo. I also think that obviously they're going to step up the pace again, and you're going to see Danny Briere flying again. You're going to see Chris Drury flying again, and guys like Greer who get in there and start pounding around and use their speed as well, too. So they were due for a sort of off game because Buffalo's been so consistently good. You can expect them to be going pretty hard next game.
Pretty well guaranteed that we're going to see some pace in Game 3, and we'll have it for you at 7:30 Eastern for the first time since 1999, a conference final game in Buffalo. The Carolina Hurricanes and the Sabres tied at 1 in the series, rookie goaltenders at either end of the ice, and no shortage of scoring power. 7:30 Eastern tomorrow. For Brian Engblom, for Keith Jones, I'm Bill Clement. Hope you enjoyed the game we had tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern.